My name's Dave Tribby, and I worked with Keith at Hewlett-Packard, so I get to cover those years. He, of course, started at SRI, and then for just a couple of years, he was at a small company called Vitalink, and then he showed up at Hewlett-Packard in 1987. I was working in the same lab. There were about 8 people in that lab, and we looked at each other. We thought we had seen each other before, and it turned out we went to the same church. So we had a number of connections over many years. He was brought in to look at network management and cryptography. So those were emerging technologies back in '87, and he would always be up on the very latest of the technology that was happening, of course. I remember when he started at HP, he told me his plan. He said one of the reasons he came to HP was retirement age was 55, and you had to be there 15 years, and he was 40, and so guess what? In 2002, he could retire. Well, I guess we're on plan B, but it seems to have worked out okay. Our lab, we were kind of between the product divisions and the research portion of the company. We were supposed to identify that technology that could be turned into practical products. And Keith really thrived in that because he's a very practical person. He would understand the deep concepts. Our lab manager liked to say we had our head in the clouds, but our feet on the ground. And he consistently demonstrated his creativity and the ideas he came up with. And during the 15 years with HP, he got about a dozen, I think it was exactly 12 patents granted to him by the US government, plus others from other countries. He also was a spokesman for HP at major conferences. He would brief executives on how to use, what emerging technologies were. He once described his work to me this way. He asked me the question, would you jump off a 10-story building? And well, of course not, Keith. Well, what if that building were on fire? And what if you were trapped above the fire? And what if there was a ramp that was built that you could safely get off the top of that building? Well, suddenly that original ridiculous option became actually the safest way to go. But Keith often had to convince management that the fire of competition was real and that safe path was really achievable. Beyond his technical proficiency, Keith was always a considerate and helpful coworker. If anyone in the group needed a computer or printer set up or anything like that, we could always count on him. The other thing I noticed was we were a lab that had a lot of compatriots in other countries and other states. And whenever they would visit, they would tend to congregate with Keith. He just had that ability to connect with people on many different levels, not just the technical level, but also on the personal level. He also could share his Christian faith in subtle ways that it wouldn't, because you had to be very careful in the environment, the secular environment, but somehow he could make that connection even on that level. Also, I noticed he could keep his wits about him when other people might get real excited about something. And Linda, I think that his experience in Vietnam might have helped him understand what a real crisis is. And sometimes the things we dealt with that we thought were crises were really not. I left that lab in 1990, but I stayed in touch with Keith. And occasionally he had these wacky stories about the work he was doing. For once, he was telling me he might become the only employee of Cheyenne Property Trust. And this was a company wholly owned by HP to segregate the intellectual property that Keith was inventing in all these patents, particularly around cryptography. And it would be set up, and it was really esoteric as far as I was concerned, but it just made sense to Keith. Well, at another time, I never heard this from anyone else. He once had a payroll mistake. like nearly a year's worth of salary was dumped into his paycheck, in one paycheck. And he told me that the payroll was very quick to pull it back out. But all of his deductions for the IRS, Social Security, 401k plan were just totally messed up. And somehow they couldn't quite get around to helping him on that problem. So he had the most unique stories of anyone at HP. I looked up, he had all kinds of titles too as he moved around. He was Senior Technical Contributor, Security Program Coordinator, Chief Technical Advisor, and E-Education Chief Technical Advisor. Just a few that I could find. So 15 years after he left HP, there are many of us who remember his significant contributions, not only the technical contributions he made, but also the ones he made to his friends, and what it really meant to be a friend of Keith Clemmo.